Good evening. This is the July 14th, 2025 meeting of the Town Finance Community Housing Oversight Committee. I am Peter Pingator, Vice Chair of this committee. Our chair, Kathy Dowd, is with us as well, but she is on special assignment in New York City. And so we thought for convenience purposes, it would be wise for me to be the man on the ground, excuse me, the person on the ground carrying it. So we'll start with an inquiry. Is anyone present here or by Zoom recording this meeting? If so, please disclose that fact. I do not see any acknowledgements. Now, because we are hybrid, we'll take a roll call and then we'll have all votes. We will be done by roll call votes as well. So let's start with our attendance. Kathy Dowd.
I'm here.
Ron Spector.
I'm here.
Avery New.
Here.
John Collins.
Here.
Irwin. Here. And Chair Peter Pingator is present. I think tonight, Dave Davison is our ex officio member, our new staff member at the helm as of this meeting, and I guess as of the second half of our prior meeting, is Cecilia Timchak. So welcome. All right. First order of business is public comment. I do not see anyone.
No, we have a hand raised.
Okay, we have our hand raised. All right, please.
There we go.
All right, Mr. Donald, just identify yourself by name.
Right. Yeah. Ross Donald, 25H Chambers Street. And I don't have much to say, but briefly I do try to attend these meetings or follow up on them. And I want to thank people for attending these meetings. It is air conditioned, I suppose, so it's not that bad. But the interest that I have as president of the Residents Association is from the point of view of the residents. And you are taking a position as a committee to look at the financials and the contracts and the amounts and whether it's agreeable to the two parties. We're looking at the same thing and trying to get to the work product that was done. A lot of people have criticisms about the participation of the Cambridge Housing Authority. And that's because a lot of the things that were approved you may or may not approve are coming up at this meeting are meetings. You know, if Margaret Moran attends a series of meetings, an hour and a half, night after night at $225 an hour, and I went to some of those meetings. One of them was a Saturday morning. And it's a meeting. There might be a PowerPoint presentation, but there's very little in the way of work product that we can use. The best example, and I have yet to chase down a lot of more presentable information, was the tree survey that was done for Linden Street. A lot of information there, and I brought the idea of the Housing Authority participating in the Needham townwide effort to look at the trees. I asked them what the position of the Housing Authority as a property owner it might be regarding public shade trees, for instance. Can we take a position? Can we participate in the townwide activities? I don't know. We do have a new board, but that's the kind of thing that I'm going to be pressing. Where's the reality here? We're spending millions of dollars, 1.386 million on Linden Chambers. $1 million's been spent, and not much has gone into the Chambers part of it. You know, it was a Linden Chambers project that was approved by town meeting. So, but anyway, these are all details that I'm focusing in on in passing. So again, thank you for your service.
Thank you, Mr. Donald. Do we have any other members?
No, that's all.
Okay. So what I'd like to do is let's go for, our next item on the agenda are the minutes, and that is on the back end of your packet. Beginning on page 43 of your PDF that was emailed to you, or it would be in hard copy here tonight. So first, with respect to the minutes, I trust folks have had an opportunity to review them. And do we have any comments on the minutes? Yes, sir.
I just thought there was a minor typo. I think, I can't find the moment when Rick was speaking. I think it said HIS, and I think it's supposed to be THIS. I don't think it really changes any context or anything.
Okay, so if we
I
can,
think if you look at the top of page 3, first paragraph, Rick Zambon said that this deals with, that this deals with this.
okay, that's fine. So that's one type. So that should be this rather than his. Okay. Any other comments?
I'll make that correction.
Okay, good. And then, on the, Needham Housing Authority update, first paragraph, second sentence, beginning with the, that should be he. Oh, we're at it. And sorry for going backwards. Oh no, we'll start that, we're fine. All right, those are my comments. Any other comments? All right, let's have a motion to approve the minutes as amended.
And move.
Okay, second,
Second?
okay. All right, we'll have a roll call vote. Kathy Dow,
Yes.
Avery Newton,
Yes.
Ron Spector,
Yes.
John Collins.
I wasn't present, so I don't know,
You
can
can.
I abstain
you can
or
vote, you can
can I
abstain
vote?
or you can vote, it's fine, either way.
Right, I'll vote yay, yes.
Okay, good. Erwin.
Yeah.
And the chair votes yay. Okay, now moving on to item number 3, which will be a review and vote of the Needham Housing Authority Community Preservation Reimbursement Request. The summary of those requests begins on page 2 of your PDF packet. And then a summary of each individual request, numbered 18 through 24, is on a spreadsheet at page 3 of the packet. So each of the requests is a request for reimbursement under Article 17 of the May 2022 annual town meeting. And as in addition to your packet, you should have had at least the language of Article 17. And each of the requests, I think you can note, is a request for reimbursement related to services provided by the Cambridge Housing Authority. And each of those requests as a description, general description, lists that there were tasks, it was actions taken pursuant to task order number 4, and that should be in addition to your packet for this evening. So I think what I would propose is that we discuss them together and then vote separately. Does that make sense to this group? Okay, good. So see how that works. I don't know if we've done versions of this in the past, but let's start. I guess the easiest way to start is with request 18 under annual town meeting 2022, Article 17, the requested reimbursement is the amount of $28,435. And it has to do with services provided between July and September of 2023. We have questions for the housing authority related to that. Yes, sir.
My question actually applies to all, the right questions apply to all the invoices. If someone can just explain, they all say invoice for repositioning work, if someone can just explain what that is. And my second question is, these invoices are about 2 years old. How come we're seeing them now?
Okay. So we have a representative from the Housing Authority here. We both have the executive director and the chair of the Housing Authority, Foster. So maybe perhaps both of you can step up. And Kathy, do you want to raise your question now?
Sure, because it's related. It's just as a follow-on to Erwin's. I was wondering if this represents all of the state repositioning expense for the project and what happened to February, March, and April of 2024. So, but answer Erwin's first. I think mine is sort of a subsidiary to his.
Yeah, just so the record's clear, the requests 18 through 22 run from July through July 2023 through January 2024. And then requests 23 and 24, the final two, be picked up again in May of 2024 and June of 2024. So the question is, what was there work done? Is there going to be a request for reimbursement for that in that period? Is that correct? Okay, good. So then those are three questions. Let's
I have
start with
another
those.
one, but
Okay,
yeah, I mean, it goes to the repositioning. I think it just, when I look at the invoices, they're just, it says someone's name and it says, you know, the time they worked, and it says repositioning, but there's nothing to indicate what that person did. So I bill for my time as an attorney, and I send a bill that says exactly what I did today for the hour, that I wrote a letter to so-and-so about such and such. There's none of that on this invoice or any of the invoices, which cost me, which just begs the question, what was done? For example, you know, when you go to each and every one of these, you know, what did this person do for that hour that we're getting billed for? And how do we know it was really a town and Needham matter and it really had to do with this? It's so generic. And it's so even in time. You know, it's an hour, it's a half an hour, it's not like 5 minutes or 4 hours and 25 minutes. And it's just, so that's what my questioning is about, and what's been done to verify that what the work product was for each of these instances were being billed.
I think that's come up before as well with this same, I think it was with Cambridge Housing as well.
I mean, it's
in
every
terms of how
single
they
one of
structure
these.
this.
Right,
Right.
and I'll add to that if I can, it also doesn't tell you how far you are into the process, like, if you've spent 30% of the budget, are you 30% of the way to what your endpoint is? So I think I agree, you know, when I've billed for time, you have both, you have sort of the details of what you've done and also percentage completion and how far you are into the work. So this doesn't provide any of that.
okay, I did my best to write those down, but we'll start with Erwin's question, the general question, which was, what is the reposition, right? Is that your question? What is, because all of them
Kind
are
of
described,
related to what John was saying.
and then related, sure, what is repositioning? And I guess what was actually done in connection with it? And what can we do to verify that that work was done within a period of time and within the time expended as represented?
So, Cheryl and I will take different questions as we go along. I did not note them down, so Peter, if you can just serve them up one at a time.
I
that would be
think that's,
great.
I'll do my best.
Appreciate it.
Yeah.
So the first question is, what is repositioning? There's been a number of presentations given to a number of different town bodies, which we can, you know, send to you that address that. And when I say number of town bodies, I'm talking about the finance committee, the CPC, the select board, town meeting, et cetera. And they're all available, and send you as many as you want. And I can also point you to maybe sources of information in Wikipedia or online, as much as you would like to be educated. The answer to your question is we brought the Cambridge Housing Authority on board mid-2021 in a competitive procurement process to be our development consultant. And over a period of a couple of years, they developed a strategy to basically come up with the financing to redevelop well, we started with just Linden Chambers as a broad, and that's all of our state housing, so. Do you understand what I mean when I say state housing, state subsidized housing, as opposed to federally subsidized housing? So that's 152 studio units that were across the street from High Rock School. Very hard to come up with the money for that because the state does not provide money for redevelopment or even keeping them fixed up, keeping up with the maintenance needs since the 60s when they were built. And that strategy, is to shift it from state subsidized housing to federally subsidized housing, which is known as, in the term of art, repositioning. It's financial engineering is another term that's used in other parts of the world, other sectors. And by doing the repositioning in the right way, you can come up with the money necessary to, number one, redevelop in chunks and phases, as it turned out, Linden and Chambers. So we're going forward with right now 40 units of those 152 units and turning it into 76 units. You have to come up with capital in order to tear down and rebuild those units. And in this case, the capital is $57 million. And then you have to come up with annual subsidy units that make up the difference between what our, residents can pay and the cost of actually running a modern multifamily apartment building. Stop me if I go too fast on anything. And so to give you a real example, our average tenant, and Cheryl will keep me on the straight and narrow, at Linden Chambers pays about $400 a month for a studio apartment. But the market value, the fair market value of a studio apartment in Needham, Massachusetts, is more like close to $2,000 a month. And there's market reasons for doing that. There's a shortage of housing, but it actually costs money to keep properties up. So what we are doing is letting go of the state subsidy that's been paid since the 60s. And by repositioning the property from state subsidy, over the next indefinite future, when the redevelopment is done, to federal subsidy, and this is federal Section 8 subsidy. You might have heard of Section 8 housing units, because it's widely used. There are 2 or 3 million of them in the United States altogether there, which does the same thing in the private sector. It allows private sector landlords, it allows tenants to pay $400 a month for something that's worth $2,000 a month, if you happen to be in this area. And so that difference, that $1,600 a month, is paid via Section 8 federal money to the landlord every month. In fact, we have 123 Section 8 vouchers, and one part of Cheryl's empire actually sends checks every month to those landlords. So this is just the same sort of thing, taking advantage of the same federal programs to eventually we have been permitted by the planning board to do the 72 Linden Street units, which are the low-rise, one-story ones across the street from the High Rock School. And those will become 136 new one-bedroom apartments in a 4-story multifamily building. And the first phase of that is the 40 units, $57 million needed in today's dollars, plus the subsidy units, that we will get. And I'm going to stop there because that's another sort of complicated part of it, but did I answer your question?
Yeah, if I can just follow up, I understand this is kind of like a different financing approach.
Correct.
So the money expended out of what scope of work item did that come? Is that out of a contingency? Cause I don't believe there was. That as a specific scope of work item, that there was money in a scope of work to do the refinancing, since that. Has just come about recently,
No, it wasn't recent. It was from day
but
one.
was that in their original scope of work? that
Yes.
they would Be able to do that?
Yeah, the reason it says state repositioning is it refers to a task order
Okay,
that we have, which has since been closed out since it's 2023, which explicitly spells out in a number of different pages, the scope of work that these hours are basically being billed against. So in receiving, and this may be a little bit of a segue into another one of the questions, in receiving Cheryl and myself and the others who've been monitoring this on a daily basis and meeting on a daily and weekly basis during this time period, the Cambridge Housing Authority, we get an invoice saying, we put these hours in. We know what they've been doing and what their day-to-day work products are, not just major deliverables, which there are some of those as well. But, the email interactions, the meeting interactions and so forth. That basically progressed us to the point where today. We actually have that $57 million, funding request. Into the state. It went in the end of February 2025. And it's what they know as a tax credit funded project, a low income housing tax credit. Which all states can take advantage of from the federal government. And which is overseen in minute detail by what is now known as the Executive Office of Housing and Livable Communities, but used to be known as DHCD, Department of Housing and Community Development. Every year, they have an annual competition round. This one is known as the Winter 2025 round, which we were able to make the deadlines and submit all the information, and we are now under consideration for the very limited amount of, not limited, but for the limited amount, far more demand and projects than there is money to do it. And we thought we were going to hear by last month, including everybody else, from the governor's office, a big announcement of several $100 million worth of projects that were approved, one of which theoretically could be ours. Unlikely to be ours because there are other projects have been waiting 2 or 3 years to be funded, but at least we're in line, knocking on the door. As a result of this work that you're approving the invoice for.
So Rich,
Hopefully
task
tonight.
order number 4, did it have a set dollar amount that, for the items that are set forth in there, Cambridge was gonna charge X dollars?
So it's not at the granular level that I think you're asking about, but yes,
So what is it? What was that amount?
I can send that, but I don't have it in my head. So, but it basically was all against the 1.386. We wouldn't be doing this project if that grant had not been granted to us by the CPC and then the town meeting back in the day.
No, I understand that, but
And-
what's this component? We're focusing on this component. So this task order number 4, was it a $50,000 item? Was it a $100,000 item? Was it a?
I will look it up in parallel to answering the other questions if you give me the time to do it. I have it, with me here, but I don't have it in my head, obviously. So. Why don't I'll make a
Okay,
note
so-
and Peter will take us through the next questions here.
Well, all right, so I guess related to that, the next question was, what was done? What was, I'll call it the deliverable. That was done in connection with these requests for reimbursement.
So,
And what can we do? Look, we're looking here. Look at it from our
yeah,
perspective. We're looking at a request for reimbursement. And we get a statement that said it's a fairly sizable amount, over $100,000. And there's no description of the day-to-day tasks. There's no description of what the deliverable was. but there's a statement on all of them that says reposition.
No, there are descriptions of what you just said. I just answered the question. There is a task order describing what they're doing.
We have the task.
There's monthly reports from the Cambridge Housing Authority, which Cecilia has.
Okay,
I'm gonna look up I'm going to answer the question. If you give me a minute or two to just dredge it out of my hard disk, okay?
sure.
Or 5 minutes maybe.
Okay, should we adjourn for 5 minutes?
No, I'm just saying, there are other questions you asked that
Sure.
Cheryl, I know, is gonna be answering, not me here.
Okay,
So. if you-
there are other questions from Rhonda, or how far into the process are you in terms of this task order or I think more broadly, Cambridge Housing Authority's role, and what percentage of completion do we have? Is that correct?
Yeah, I mean, usually when you have a budget, you line it up, like if you spent half of it, you wanna be halfway there. Just basic.
So that's the question. Okay, the question is what is the budget?
How do
Where
we-
are you at on the budget?
Right.
Right, I guess, are you within the budget?
Are you gonna get to the end without needing more money?
That's probably what our major concern, our final and omnibus question.
Well, I can answer that question first, and let me just pause, and then there was a question about why are we getting invoices from 2023 that Cheryl can
Yeah.
talk to that one. Are we gonna run out of money? We're gonna not, the answer is no, because by hiring HSC Peabody, developer LLC, our development partner. Our co-developer, if you want to call it that, we've transferred the running out of money risk to them. Is a one sentence answer to that question. In other words, the available funds left from the 1.386 that, Cecilia updated, there's some available funds left on the ARPA grant, but not a lot. We'll use that up. But then for all further funding in terms of advanced pre-development funding and so forth will come from them.
Okay. Is that acceptable to you, Ron? Okay.
I think we talked about it earlier. I'm used to, you just do a spreadsheet with all of the expenses and you have, what you've spent, where you are, there's usually a snapshot that you can do.
I have a spreadsheet. If you give me a minute to look at my
Okay, great.
computer, then
So
I'd be happy to give you what we have. It's probably not in the format you're expecting,
Yeah.
but it's not nothing.
But my understanding is that the town had forwarded to the housing authority the kind of form that we came up with, because we had a
Template.
discussion about this, not our last meeting, but the meeting prior to that. About the kind of information we'd like to have. If we're back to the question of the snapshot. So.
Can you put that down on your list of questions? What about that form? And let's catch up on the questions that are already on the table, because you're just, not letting us answer even the questions that have already been asked, but if
Well,
that's
you
a
asked me to
question.
continue with the question, so.
No, the ones that you wrote down 5 questions. Keep them in order here and, let's keep knocking them down as much as we
Okay,
can.
so there's a gap in the invoices. From January of 2024 until May of 2024. Or will there be invoices for the period between those two dates?
It's back to me, I'm looking at it right now. So January from Cambridge Housing Authority, right? January 24 to, what's the end date?
Just say you have January. What we're missing is February, March, April.
You're talking about the period, February, March, April, right? Period of service, not when we got the invoices.
Correct.
Yeah. So, February, March, April, we have, say the February 24th, Linden Chambers pre-development invoice here is $9,805. We paid that invoice. We submitted to ARPA and they paid it, reimbursed us. So remember, way back at the beginning, the request from the town was that we submit invoices as much as possible to the ARPA grant, the 1.25 ARPA grant. And and only if we couldn't get it through them for whatever reason, then we would use it, we come back to the town, just keep that powder dry as long as possible.
Okay, so the February invoice is paid by ARPA.
Yeah.
How about March and April?
And the February invoice I have here, was resubmitted to, rejected on 6/13/25, so just recently. And Cheryl, then I would hand it over to Cheryl to talk to what's going on with ARPA, because I don't think she does that part here. So we'll just take that one example, if you want to continue going down that line here. But I'm looking at a spreadsheet where it ties together all the reimbursement requests and reconciles it with the payments we made and who's reimbursed us and so forth and so on. So
it's March, how about March? and
March,
April?
let me see, what I have down on March of 2024 for Linden Chambers is 11,527. We, the Housing Authority, has paid that. Check number 241. And that was submitted, that also was submitted to ARPA and rejected by them. But that was just like the 6/13. So, and we've been trying to deal with issues with them and resubmitting them before we come back to the committee. So correct me if I'm wrong on sort of giving that answer.
It's a good answer.
So I also, besides being chair of the Medium Housing Authority, I'm the spreadsheet. I was gonna say something that begins with a J, but spreadsheet expert that is keeping track of this stuff, because it's very complicated to keep track of. What's the next one?
So
The April, then the Chambers one has been paid by the Housing Authority for $8,007.50. And was submitted to ARPA. And then resubmitted on the 30th to ARPA, and I don't know what happened to it after that, so it's beginning in the last month.
So just to follow up on those, is your plan to resubmit all of them to ARPA before you ask the town for reimbursement, or is the plan to ask the town because ARPA has rejected them?
Our plan is to resubmit 2 or 3 times to ARPA to try to deal with the flaws and problems with their system and their approval, which is pretty, challenging, let's say. And then if we can't get it through the ARPA and they're understaffed in all fairness to them, and so forth, then we would come here, yes. So I'm sorry to be very laborious in answering the question, but it's hundreds of invoices and 8 or 10 funding sources across the whole set of projects that we do. And
So let's just go on with the questions. So there was, I think that
and I can answer the question specifically of what exactly was the Cambridge Housing Authority doing from their monthly report, which, by the way, the committee has been provided earlier by Katie or somebody. But I'm just gonna look that up so I can answer the question month by month for what you do have in front of you to the best of my ability.
okay. You want me to continue with the question?
Mhm.
How far into the process in terms of percentage completion are you? I guess this is tied to task order number 4.
So there was a original budget that was submitted and approved by the CPC. That's not in the spreadsheet that Cecilia set out at the beginning of at the beginning of June, I think it was, when you originally sent us, plus or minus a few days here. And that is not the current budget. It's evolved over the 2 years' time, and the current budget is actually what was submitted to the state HLC winter 2025 round, which is the actual amount of, is going to cost to do take those 40 units to 72 units. And that's a whole nother budget, which I can provide with a few minutes or of time. If you just give me a moment to do that, or you can ask those questions in advance of these meeting, and it can be covered on a staff basis in advance, but I don't think we've gotten any of these questions in advance of this meeting tonight here.
Yeah, I know, but what we're asking those questions because we're getting a blank sheet in front of us, right? Again, I don't.
You haven't asked these questions until now,
I-
and I'm gonna answer them right now.
Okay,
Well, I guess I would just suggest that that's part of what filling out that template that Cecilia had put together would have done. That it may not ask every question, but I think it would have covered a number of the questions that we're asking. Certainly the percent completion and, a little more detail on what the money was used for. So that would be maybe the value, and I understand it takes time to do when you guys are very short-staffed, but it might get easier to do over time after you've done it once or twice. But I think that might go some distance, towards answering our questions ahead.
So why don't we go to that question? The question, this is the last question you wrote down. We don't have any ability to recast what's being done right now in the format that was submitted at the beginning of June. We don't have ability to do that because that's not the way the budget is created initially, and it's not the way it's being monitored right now by HSC Peabody. And we don't have any staff time or resources or money to hire somebody to try to use that format or that template that was put out by Cecilia.
okay, so
In fact, we don't even have time to even respond to Cecilia and say that, except at the last minute here. Because there's so much going on that's stressing both the paid staff resources on this project, which is, you're looking at most of them on my left here, who is regularly working nights and weekends to try to keep up with everything. We do have a day-to-day agency to run with a bunch of customers that are sort of, have a lot of challenges, and we just don't have the ability to do that format. And we don't have money to pay somebody to do it in some different format.
okay,
We can work with what we have, but that's just where we're at.
I think we're all asking is that when the work is done by a consultant, that they would provide a little more detail,
They did.
but something that could be transferred so that we can then see it.
I can give you an example of what they provide, but we don't have anybody to transfer it and repackage it in a new format.
They can't send you like a summary that you can then.
They don't even work, the project is over. Cambridge Housing Authority doesn't work on this anymore. They've been taken over by HSC Peabody.
Can I interrupt really quick? We have a new recording secretary who's watching. If everyone could just go around and introduce themselves so that they can figure out the name to the person, that would be helpful for the minutes.
okay, I'm Peter Pingator.
Erwin Silverstein, PBBC representative.
John Conley. Dave Davidson.
Rhonda Spector.
Avery Newton.
Cheryl Gosselin.
Reg Foster.
I'm Kathy Dowd.
So, Reg, So just related, I guess, a couple questions. I looked at the invoices and the time, but the invoice date seems to be, they seem to have issued the invoices within 30 days after the close of the month. So-
No, never.
Okay, so, oh, all right, but they're dated. The invoices are dated. Uh,
Which
From-
invoice are you talking about? I mean, some of them are fairly prompt, but most, a lot
Okay,
of them are not.
all right, I don't want to quibble over it. So there is, does the problem continue that Cambridge Housing Authority just issued these invoices months and months and months later? Then when, after they, months and months after they
It
provided.
no longer continues, but some of them were that way, yes. And then some of them had the date issue date, and then they had flaws in them and had to be rejected, by Cheryl, and then went back to Cambridge Housing Authority with a corrected invoice would come in, at a number of occasions, unless I've misrepresented something, Cheryl.
No.
So in our next meeting, are we gonna get kind of a similar batch of these where we're gonna be struggling to try and verify what it is that they did for the amount of the request, or is their work ending in this way? So what are we gonna see going forward? Because we're struggling right now to do our own due diligence and review. Really, the other question was, what was done and how can we verify that?
What is readily available and is without requiring any more staff work than just looking them up in the files and printing them out and attaching it is two things I think of that I can think of, but I'm gonna have Cheryl think in parallel if there's something else. One is what's already been provided, which is the monthly reports from the Cambridge Housing Authority on each one of the town-funded things they did. Some of it was for seabeds and Cook, for example, which is the federal side. So there's a 1 or 2 page report that goes to the board, the Needham Housing Authority board. It says this is what we did last month, and every once in a while, something complicated enough has been done, and with the Cambridge Housing Authority consultants are actually on the agenda for the board meeting, and then there's minutes.
So
Or that-
can I interrupt? We've seen those documents in
That's right.
connection with prior requests.
So I'm
But we don't
answering,
have any of those documents.
No.
in
I
request.
included them the last time.
You included them the last time.
yeah. Well, I've
I
been-
went through and searched and found what I thought was relevant.
Okay, so you went back to their database,
The previous documents that they had provided me and just found something that looked like it was relevant.
And then
thank you.
so that's one thing that's readily available, and now we're providing on a routine basis, since this issue first came up a few months ago, was what did anybody do? And then the second thing that we certainly can make available are the task orders for the scope of work that Irvin was asking about. That's an easy 10 minutes worth of work, dredging them up out of the archives and forwarding them to Cecilia for distribution.
But we have.
What we're not doing is attaching the task orders and the reports to these reimbursement requests every month, because that's a lot of extra work.
Well, we have task order number 4.
Okay,
We managed to dig it out.
okay.
Okay. Yeah, go ahead.
So the piece that Cambridge was doing for Linden Chambers is done. It's
Yes.
completely done, and an RFP went out for another developer, and we have another developer on the project, so whatever they did is done and long past, and I think it's, at this point, probably reasonable for us to we're not gonna go into it and say like, you never had a good meeting, and we're not gonna do that in retrospect. We're not gonna go back and say like, that was a terrible meeting, you didn't come to any conclusion, we shouldn't pay you for that. So I think that the best that we can do at this point is to approve these, but going forward, they're still working on Cook and Seabed, right?
Yes,
And I think what we're asking for is to not put the burden on you or Cheryl, it's to put it on them. Is to have them send us let them do that documentation of what money's available and what they're spending. And when they put in an invoice, not have a backup or, like, tell us what you did for the month, tell us what you spent the hour on. That's usually, I mean, when I have, I have architects that do this work, I have consultants that do the work. I get an invoice that says, 3 hours, worked on this. And then I have a whole thing where it says, here's the total budget and here's the percent I've spent and here's how far close we are to completion. And they should be doing that for you. It shouldn't be on you. Like, you
Well-
should not have to do that work.
Let's use that example. So there's only a $242,000 grant for Seabeds and Cook, which we are spending, everything that gets spent, whether it's from Cambridge Housing Authority or, the main expense is actually from the BH&A. We're just authorized starting up CDs at the
Right, and
beginning of the
they-
month. But that's not being charged, a fraction of that cost is being charged to the T-Chalk. And 21.5% to be precise of that 241,000, with Cecilia's report will tell you how much of it's left. And going forward, I can certainly relay the request, but they're gonna say, well, that's gonna cost you extra money and
That's crazy.
pay for us.
No,
We're
it shouldn't.
paying them for their work. They should tell us what work they're doing.
No, they
for
do.
us.
They tell us every month,
Then they
but
just
not
need
in
to-
a new reporting format being requested by the T-Chalk. It was never set up that way.
I'm gonna tell you, there's no consultant I would ever hire that I didn't ask this of. Not
No
one.
question.
I literally would not allow a consultant to work for me that didn't provide that information in that format. And it's nothing. They should be doing it for
Well,
everyone.
maybe we should have done that differently, but we didn't.
But it's not a big deal to ask them to do it this way. Like, you should just say, we need a revision to our invoice. We need the details that you're providing, saying we're doing this monthly. We just need it to be shown on the invoice.
So you haven't had any problem with the BH&A invoices because that's a fixed price contract, right? And they show in their monthly invoices, percent of complete against each phase. So we're not talking about that. I just wanted to.
It's very common. It's not unusual.
So
I'm a woman
they
in the
don't,
shop.
they don't do
You do
it.
that thing, yeah.
Yeah,
They don't do that.
Well,
It's
look
just
at
a
how-
recipe for
Right.
fraud.
it is a
honestly.
recipe
It's-
for.
That's what's so scary about it.
And because they're not getting the oversight? Why? I
Well, it's
wouldn't,
just-
I would not like to go to allegations or
I'm not
recipes of
saying an
fraud
allegation,
and
not
say,
that-
because
not an
that's definitely
allegation,
not
that
happening.
is not an allegation, but when it's 700 hours billed toward something called repositioning.
Yeah.
For
lot of
for
I'm
something.
saying
right,
there is
for
a
something that
report.
is amounts to it.
Who is reviewing
What
this
I'm saying
report?
is-
Let's not talk over each other, okay?
That's all, and
I'm sorry,
believe
I
you, it's
react to anybody who says fraud or recipe for fraud, and I
This isn't
really
an
object to
accusation.
that. I'm not saying it's an
You.
accusation, I don't
it's
think
not.
it even should be brought up in the first place. Yeah, I think, having proper oversight, I don't want to be talking to any reporter who listens into the tape of this thing about
Right. No, I hear
the
you.
T-Chalk having concerns about might be fraud here because you haven't had been. I think that's really wrong and
There is,
counterproductive.
there is
There's-
no allegation, the
there is
only
no-
is that there are no
I
don't think-
details for
I don't think that's
700
what we're
hours of
talking
work.
about at
That
all.
is
I don't think
what I'm
that's,
saying.
I think we're talking about how can we deal with a very imperfect situation.
Reg, what I would ask from you is to allow committee members who are speaking to complete their statement. Please do not talk over people. I understand you may feel like this is an emotional charged situation, but we are just trying to do our job. That's all we're trying to do.
Can you respond to what you said? With a request?
Sure.
I don't think we should be mentioning things like the possibility of fraud. I think that is a very negative and incorrect way of going about
The reason
the
that,
legitimate purpose of this committee.
the reason that we are making this
That's
inquiry,
all I want to say.
thank you, but you know what? We're entitled to say what needs to be said. And there was no allegation whatsoever about fraud.
No.
No, it was a recipe.
No. Okay.
It's not a
let's-
recipe.
Ron, let's take
I
it
think-
forward.
It's really important. We're here to support this project. We want this to get done and we want to be able to stand up and say. You know, the reason I think we were formed is we want to have a third party being able to say. They did a great job, all the money was spent really well, and we feel like we got an incredible product. I think we're gonna say that. I think we want, but it's very hard to say that when, as you were saying. 700 hours are billed and we have no idea what was done during those hours. And that is very unusual. I don't know what, I mean, I've been working in this for, I don't even want to number the years, but it's decades. And I've never paid a bill that I didn't know what the person spent the hours on. And I think it's not a hard request
Me
to ask.
neither.
Yeah, so, okay, I mean, I think we're all in the same place, and we really just wanna be here to support you and to make sure that this project gets done, and that when asked to stand up and say, we feel really comfortable with how it was done, that we say, not only are we comfortable, we think it was an amazing project, and everything was done in an incredible way. Because it was, I mean, I think getting Peabody on board, this is mind-bogglingly amazing for the town. And I think we're here just asking questions, just to be supportive, just to be, clear.
Well, we're not here just to be supportive. We have a duty and
To,
we are exercising that duty.
it's
Okay,
supportive in that we are watching and feeling like we can vouch for the fact that it was done well.
right. And so that is what we're struggling with at this moment as a committee. So you had a Rhonda, you had a proposal about moving forward.
I propose that we approve the work that was done by them, by Cambridge. Housing Authority on the project that is completed. I think it's done and it got handed off in an amazing way, and I think. That for me is enough to say that the work that they did was useful and beneficial, and we should pay these bills, but I think going forward for Cook and Seabeds, we should be asking for. A little bit more detail on anything going forward. That's my proposal.
Well, I think that going with any future request from today forward. Regardless, if we may be faced with more Cambridge Housing Authority requests for reimbursement, we want detail. Right?
Yes, we would prefer to have
Just a
detail.
brief description of what was done.
And I will wait for the total amount of task order number 4. Can you find that for us, Rich?
It's sort of a silence. Yeah, I mean, I work for nonprofit by day, so, it's called the Telemark, it's a national nonprofit that's focused on sort of it's an upskilling for people in the medical field, like medical assisting and sort of these jobs that don't take 10 years to train for, like. Doctors and sort of it's like years of scale, but, it's the people who numbers 11.
You need a few minutes, Reg. We can.
No, I'm just looking at the document. There's like thousands of documents that we keep track of here, so it's tough
So,
to navigate to it. So I'm opening up task order and
The other one of the 5 was, why are these invoices 2 years old?
Well, I think we got that because they went somewhere else first. Right, they were trying,
Is it- Why are they coming in now? Do you know, can you answer that, Cheryl?
Well, they're late in giving us sending us the invoices. I think what they have to do is when they outline their hours, it goes to another person to approve. And by the time it gets to us, it's late, it's already late. If you look at some of these invoices, the service period and the invoice date, there's a big gap. once it gets to us, we have to check everything. We have to check that the figures are correct. So, I think with the 2023 invoices, there may have been some staffing changes for Cambridge because those invoices came to us just very late. Yeah. I can only assume that the way they submit it to their administrative staff for processing, there was a lag. But once we get them, we don't send them over here, until we actually check those figures. And to be honest with you, I mean, I don't like it. I do not like it. These invoices are prepared by a young man who has his master's degree from MIT in urban planning. He's a smart young man. He's young and they're very simplistic, and they just do things this way. But we are the product of these meetings that these hours represent, and there's a lot going on. And we would have never gotten this far without their expertise.
Yeah, we do understand that, but you cannot.
But I understand, I don't like it either, and it hasn't always been like this. I mean, I think it's evolved to this present project manager who submits them to their accountant, and I think there was a lag in their organization between the present accounting manager and what's there before, so.
So if you look, just to follow it up, just to make sure I understand it, so the first invoice, which is for the period covers July, August and September of 2023, those are the 3 months that are being billed. And on the copy that I'm looking at, it says invoice number 202-307 Needham 12/5/23. So it might have taken that that's when they sent it to us. And if they didn't send it to us on 12/5/23, when did they send it? Is it stamped in any way or recorded in any way as to when this invoice came into the Needham Housing Authority?
Well, we get them electronically. We don't, once I print them out, I don't date stamp them. They don't come in the mail. Usually all of our invoices, et cetera, that come in the mail, we do date stamp, but this one just comes electronically. These invoices come to us electronically. We print them out.
So am I safe to assume that if it says on this invoice from the Cambridge Housing Authority, 12/5/23, that's when it was sent to the Needham Housing Authority?
You can assume that. Well, no, it's not
So why
completely
can't I,
correct.
so
Yeah,
when
I'm
did
so
the
sorry.
Needham Housing Authority receive
Yeah,
this invoice?
wait, I mean, you can even see when we paid it, which was in this fiscal year, yeah. Date,
Follow up on John, it clearly is a 30-day period within which it has to be paid, so the due date is January 5th, 2024. If I was them, I would. Why am I not being paid?
exactly.
I don't
Yeah,
understand that.
well, we did have that conversation with them.
They do not have the same discipline about overdue accounts receivable that you would expect to find in that private sector organization. Is the neutral
So-
answer to your question.
When we have, I think I'm reaching back to our prior documents, and there's a memo prepared by the Cambridge Housing Authority, kind of a monthly memo that listed what we've done, what we'd like to do, kind of that, but within that, at least we could discern what it is that they had done in the last 30 days or so, right?
Mhm.
So I think that there'd be our comfort level would be increased if we could see those memos tied to the months. Now, it's not ideal because it doesn't have a detailed breakdown that you would see in a bill from a law firm or a consultant. But at least it would identify what it is that they had done during that period in a general way. So I think that may be, I'd like to
That'd be
see.
enough, right?
Okay, so that would be enough.
So I have,
And my goal, I just want to be very, very clear, my hope is that will help sort of save you all some of this work in preparing and you know, validating and double checking. My whole goal in this is really to protect the work that's been done. So again, I want to be on the record, there's no accusation. It's just when something is like this and empty, it is a recipe, meaning the possibility for, you know, bad actors to come in. So I think having that level of specificity will save all of us. And I really see this as, it's not us versus you in any way. It's us together versus the problem or what needs to be paid. And I really do see it that way. There's no antagonism whatsoever.
may I
I
make
wanna be clear with that.
a
Good, so
suggestion?
so the request is, can we have those meetings, that document, that memo that they put together? And they usually do it on a monthly basis and tied to these months that we've made.
Well, Cecilia can send that to you, but may I make a suggestion on,
Well, how is it that, I don't
well,
understand.
you already requested it before and we can send it again if that's what you're saying, sure.
Yeah.
I was just trying to respond to what Allison said, if that's
Okay.
okay.
Avery.
Avery is her name.
Avery, sorry.
It's all good. There's a lot of A names in the world.
Yeah. First, I want to say if I was a little over responding to you, I apologize for that.
It's a
Okay,
big
All
word.
right,
I've
all right,
been
and then
careful.
secondly, you know, all of this has been done. And maybe it should be done better. The T-Chalk didn't exist, you know, at the time. And I would want to maybe say on a go-forward basis, there are $5.5 million worth of funds that haven't been tapped whatsoever for Linden Chambers. And there's $3.2 million worth of, thank you, town meeting funds. So there's $0.7 million. And I think maybe at the next quarterly meeting, it would be a good idea to have both our development partners, which is Cambridge Housing Authority for the 3.2 million, and HC Peabody in for a discussion of what T-Chalk will be looking at when we're actually tracking, you know, a huge amount of additional new money that will be going into this. Just wanted to suggest that. Now,
All right, so now, Kathy's, Dowd, your hand is up, Kathy?
Yes, so I guess a couple things. One is, yes, I think we need to, since Cambridge Housing Authority is going to continue to work with us on a much larger amount of money, I think along the lines of what Rhonda and Avery and John and Erwin are all suggesting, that we reset expectations with them in terms of how they bill us. So I agree with that. And if it needs that we bring them in to explain it, I think that is fine. I mean, I think Cambridge Housing Authority has other clients, right? I know they largely do internal thing, but we're not the only external client that they have, I believe, right? And so they may actually provide this for other clients today. But you know, we'll ask for that. And I think it's entirely reasonable. But the other thing I was wondering is, to the extent to which we append these monthly reports, like from going back to 2023 to cover these invoices. I mean, the monthly reports, I just want to understand, the monthly reports will cover a lot more work than what is on these invoices, right? So, I mean, it actually might help us if somebody just highlighted on the monthly report, like, what is it that we're talking about that was billed here? Because it's just so we can tie these two things together. Does that?
they already segregated on that basis, so that it was segregated by task order for state repositioning, you know, CBED. So it's already,
Okay.
it should be very easy to just see it in the format of the report.
So if the invoice says state repositioning in June, and we look at June, there will be a little section in the June written report that will explain what was done on state repositioning,
Yes.
like tasks.
Not at the task though, the board summary level, which is basically, you know, this is what we did. Do any of the board members have any question about this? You know, as the board reviewed this on month to month basis. And if there were big decisions made or something like that, it would explain what was done to do that, or approvals that were received by the state or by the federal government. You know, it's a board level report.
Mhm.
All right, so what is the status of those reports?
I think-
you have them, right? The housing authority has them?
We have them, you have them, yes.
I have them all the way up through 2023 and 2024.
Okay. So they were forwarded but not in connection with the
No,
reimbursement?
just as a whole package. They're not connected to any
We're not getting
specific reimbursement. So the last time that I did provide, I went through and looked through and assigned the best of my ability what I thought was associated without being intimately familiar with the project itself. It was kind of a best guess, but
Okay, I don't want to speak for the committee, but I don't think that should be the responsibility of the staff for T-Chunk. So that should be the responsibility of the housing authority or the Cambridge Housing Authority or the Needham Housing Authority. Because we're asking for something to verify this request for reimbursement. That's kind of that's very much a summary statement of the total hours billed and amount requested. So it's not really for us to then try and tie it to something, because we're not really in the best position to do that. The requester should be the one in the best position to do that. So it's either the Needham Housing Authority or Cambridge Housing Authority.
Well, we're not under contract for that, obviously, with anymore with the Cambridge Housing Authority, so, but, you know, we will certainly relay this conversation that we've had here. And, see what we can do.
Okay,
And-
because we've had different versions of this conversation too over the last several months.
Yes.
Okay.
Task order number 4.
Yeah, so what I found is version 14 of the PRI budget. In which in summary, which means there were 13 previous versions of it here. So this is the one that was dated September 3rd, 2024. It's the last one I received from Cambridge Housing Authority before they discontinued doing this. And for the Linden Chambers project, you know, the budget as amended, task order number 4 was, total proposed budget was $2,673,358.
Can you just give me that again?
$2,673,358. And that's the pre-development budget, because that's what, you know, the 1.386 was partially funding the pre-development at Linden Chambers, which then evolved into being just Linden Street only.
So task order number 4 is the $2.6 million, or task
No.
number 4, let me just finish. Task number 4 is a part of the $2.6 million.
Part of it.
And what part of it is?
So we treated task order 4 as, so what part it belonged to Cambridge Housing Authority is, I think what your question is, right? All right, so if we drill down to the project budget for task order 4, the Cambridge Housing Authority development consultant fees was, at that time, the budget was $260,000. But they also paid third-party expenses, so we were using their stable, pre-approved lawyers for title report and companies for the market study and so forth and so on. So that's not, I didn't give you a complete answer to what I think your question was here. But, and because all those were billed as, you know, third-party expenses through the Cambridge Housing Authority. But what I'm now looking at is the pre-development budget, and I'm happy to go over that with anybody, or it's so silly, there's nothing secret about this. But what we were tracking is, what we were most interested in doing is, yeah, we have just going back to the top level, we have the CPA grant. At that time, we had the CPA grant that we are talking about tonight, 1.3 million. We also had gotten the 1.25 ARPA grant. So we were very interested in how we were doing according to the overall funding sources, multiple funding sources for pre-development. And whether we were gonna fall short or whether we could meet it or not. So I'm looking at the summary level across all the tasks of the, all the projects here. And then I can drill down to the individual budgets by task order. And then I can drill down to where's the money coming from? So some of it comes from, from the housing authority. And some of it comes from, and if it's federal, it comes from our federal CPF funds. Those are capital funding program funds that we get every month, every year from the feds and so forth. So I'm just looking at the snapshot from 9/3/2024.
Thank you.
Now, did we calculate a percent of completion against just the amount, that 260,000? No, that was a time and materials contract with our task order with Cambridge Housing Authority, because there's no way to fix the scope of what needed to be done at the time. So they were not under, and I'm inferring that's another underlying dimension of what you're asking about here. So they did not work on a time and materials basis with us. So there wasn't a percent of completion kind of thing, because it's, they said there was, and I'm not knowing of any way that you could predict how much effort in advance would be needed when you're a development consultant. All you could do is manage, to a ceiling that was available to them. And then find more money if you needed to,
Is that an upset limit, 260,000?
Is what is?
260,000, is that an upset limit?
I'm not sure what an upset limit is.
Well,
Not to exceed.
not to exceed.
Yes. But, is it documented in a piece of paper attached that, an exhibit to the task order? No. It was documented in this spreadsheet.
So. I guess.
And I just want to say, we didn't have any staff resources to do the spreadsheet either. I did it. Because that's the way you need to manage things.
Okay, so I think, I guess for further discussion, it seems to me that we've got what I think are kind of two options. That I'm open to comment and suggestions. One option is to vote to approve these requests, but it would be subject to, the housing authority providing us with, the Cambridge Housing Authority memoranda that tie to each of these months. And promptly, and that if we have some objection based on our review of those memos, then we're going to revisit the issue. The second approach is to simply table the matter and request that the Cambridge Housing Authority and the Indian Housing Authority provide to us those memos, which would give us a more complete package at the time of any approval of the reimbursement. I think that's how I would view that. And I'm, if I'm open for discussion on that point, but I'm just trying to frame the discussion on a going forward basis so that we can move the issues forward.
Well, let me ask you a question, and I appreciate both of those ways of going about it. If we were to approve all these, I just want to make sure I understand, if we were to approve all these, there would be $308,000 remaining in the $1.3 million town meeting grant. I'll use that as a term, or authorization. As we sit here, do we know, there are bills coming for that 308,000? Are we gonna be spending all that? We're gonna be spending half of it? Any sort of forecast on that 308,000? That if we were to approve these, will be charged for those? I just want to get a sense of sort of where we are overall.
Yes, there is the expectation that we would expend the entire 308,000. But it, be via HSC Peabody going forward. Right now, we've paused the project. There's no expenditures being incurred whatsoever for Linden redevelopment. Because we haven't got the whole funding stack. We're waiting to get the answer on the 57 million. And the expectation is that we won't be approved this time around. It'd be a total miracle if it was. And then we will restart up that part of the project that's needed to correct any deficiencies that we find are necessary for resubmitting to the next funding round, which is deadline is November 2026, 2025, sometime for the winter 26 round. We've done sufficient construction documents to maybe more specifically answer. So unless we get something from HLC that says, hey, you didn't do something that you should have done, for construction documents, we won't spend any more money for that, but there are other things that may come up, and certainly you can ask AHSC Peabody themselves when they come next, but they're definitely planning on using all of that money. And it says so in the application that's before HLC right now, is that here's what's remaining. Well, it's really the February version of what's remaining from the 1.386. Here's what's remaining from ARPA. And we're gonna be spending it all on pre-development.
So with that as the answer, from where I sit, I would much rather, knowing that that could be all potentially tapped, and I would like to make sure that we have all the proper documentation for these invoices that we're being presented with now. So from where I stand, I would vote for to table it until we get the information to match what it is we're being asked for, because potentially we're not gonna have enough money for everything. And so what we are spending, I wanna make sure we're spending it in an accurate and backed up way.
Okay. All right, we have a hand up from our chair, Kathy Dowd.
Yeah, and the other question I had was that is even if you're on a pause, right, to the extent to which ARPA does not reimburse some of those expenses that you've tried to get from ARPA, they may also come back to us. Is that correct?
So we still are cleaning up the back invoices. And so not exactly correct there. And there is no risk of running out of money unless HSC goes bankrupt or something like that. We're under contract for them to pick up any further pre-development costs or anything else costs going forward.
Are there going to be additional, or the last invoice we have is for 6 of 24 in this kind of model, this repositioning, in this task order number 4, and maybe I missed all of this in the back and forth. Are there going to be additional invoices in connection with task order number 4 after 6/20/24?
You mean in 2025?
Yeah.
Yeah, no,
Okay, so when does that end? What was the date?
Task
but
order
we
number,
do have some more,
So there are,
invoices.
does it go through December of 2024?
no, it goes through mid 2024. Let me pull up the other spreadsheet. So the last invoice that we received for Linden Chambers for professional services was for the June 24 period. And then at the end of the year, they billed us one fell swoop, remaining reimbursable expenses of, that came in January 30th, 2025 is the date of that invoice. I don't know what the date of receipt is. And those have, of course, have been submitted to ARPA. And I have this, I don't know what the status of that was submitted on 6/30/2025 to ARPA. So we don't have.
What is the amount of that?
That was $20,174.10.
All right, so another 20,000 between 6/24 and January and December of 24.
And then let's see what happened to the June 2024 invoice, which has been paid by the Housing Authority. And that was one of the rejected ones. by ARPA that was rejected on 6/12/25, and are we resubmitting that, or is that the one you were telling me that we're giving up on?
We're giving up on.
We're giving up on that.
You have that in this package.
That's the last one here, right?
Is that,
We're not submitting it to ARPA.
all right, so, and
Is it
that
the last, I don't know, I don't
Number
know.
24.
it's
Yeah,
the last
so-
one in this package.
Yeah, the last professional services, 1795.
Right.
And the last reimbursable is $20,175.10.
okay, a couple of questions we have on the floor. First, Rhonda, your hand is up.
So. Right, if I understand it correctly, so with Linden. Whatever is getting spent from the money that we're overseeing. If anything, more is needed, Peabody has agreed in their agreement that they're on the hook for the rest of the money
When it runs out.
when it runs out.
And you've already received a couple invoices and approved them earlier this year. Under the new regime here, they're BH&A invoices, not Cambridge Housing Authorities.
But it's, so, we're not. I haven't read the whole document, I'm assuming that, you're representing it correctly, but that means that. Really, in some ways, Peabody is more, the money not being correctly used. Is not really creating a risk for the town, because the developer, the partner has agreed to. Pull in any other additional cash that's needed. So I think that's why I was saying that I think we're safe to approve these invoices, because it's not our risk at this point.
Well,
It's not the
but,
town's risk.
but risk is only one element of it, and it has, there's enough, the other element is veracity. Okay, so that's, and really, that's what John's comment goes to, and that's, to be honest with you, that's my concern too,
Okay,
so.
I'm just saying, I'm just,
So- But no, I
approaching it from-
appreciate that,
Right.
but you're right, because I think that risk is an issue that we have to address, and veracity is the second component of it, in my view. Kathy, were your questions answered, by,
Not entirely. I'm still a little confused because I think, Reg, you said that you're still cleaning up old invoices and there's still this question of waiting for ARPA. So I'm just wondering, and it's kind of to John's point, how many more of these might we see on this particular Article 17? I understand that you've paused and that on a going forward basis, it's with Peabody. But to the extent to which there's old invoices that have not been dealt with, like how many of those?
So we can very easily provide you a list of that. Based on the work that Cheryl and I have been doing, our next meeting on this particular work is unfortunately or fortunately for all of us, Wednesday. And coming out of that meeting, would you be confident saying you could provide an answer to that question or
Can I
not?
answer it now?
Yeah,
Yeah, I mean, Kathy, it's just, we still just have maybe 4 small invoices. There's not a list, there's not a long list of invoices. To submit.
That's fine. I just wanted to have a sense of that because, yeah. So we're not done yet. There's a few more.
Yeah.
okay, do we have other members of the committee, or I don't mean to put you in a hot seat, but give an opinion on the 2 proposals that I put on the floor for discussion?
I was gonna lean to the first, but I guess I would go with the second, assuming that's not going to cause any, serious problems regarding, eventual payment to Cambridge Housing Authority.
Okay,
Because I think, like Rhonda said, I think we feel like the work's been satisfactorily done. We just wanna, as you say, veracity, we just want the backup.
Right.
So,
may I comment on that?
Sure.
So, we can't submit invoices to TCHOG or to the town for reimbursement unless we've already paid them in advance. So Cambridge Housing Authority has been paid for these invoices before you unite. Where the terrible, difficult, challenging pain for us is, as a public housing authority, we don't have a lot of working capital that's just available to prepay invoices. And part of the reason that didn't get mentioned earlier that we're late with these invoices is we just didn't have the cash to pay them. Because most of our cash is spoken for in various different accounts, programs, and is not available to, use to prepay things. So just, the pain is that, Cheryl might want to comment more on that, because you've been dealing
I
with the
like how
pain.
you responded to that, but, we have state funding for our residents and we have, federal funding, and we don't use that money to pay, for redevelopment. So we only have a small amount of money from a leftover account that we use to move this project forward. But we absolutely do not use our subsidy to pay for this project.
So,
So if we used option one, would that be, we would then approve it at the next meeting?
yeah, if we ask, well, I know I'm confused about option one and option two, but let's go with, let's go one, the Connolly, that proposal, which would be, let's put this over for a month, get the memoranda as backup. And then, take our vote to, approve the expenditure. So that would be, we'll call it the Connolly approach. Sorry to pick on John, but I'm going to be.
That's okay.
He's used to playing that role. So, and then the other approach would be to approve it, but then we would have the backup, and then I guess we would have an opportunity to review it and end up, I guess we'd end up.
Approving it?
Well, yeah, I mean, I think, practically speaking, I think since we have a path forward, that would probably give us a comfort level for approval by by having the memorandas forwarded to us. I think that we've pretty much exhausted our questions regarding it. We would just like to see the back, and it seems like to me that the easiest path forward that would give us all a comfort level that we want would be to table it for a month and then, and have the memos catch up with these invoices, and we can vote at our next monthly meeting. I guess that would be that's John Connolly's proposal, and I don't want to speak ahead of all the other members, but that would be I would support that as well, but I'm of course open to other members of the committee weighing in on this, of course. Opinions of what, should we just have a motion? Or do we want to have further discussion? So the motion will be to table this. These requests, correct? For a 1 month period with a request to the housing authority that it produce the memoranda that the Cambridge Housing Authority produces at a monthly basis to the Needham Housing Authority. That is, that ties to these monthly invoices that Needham Housing Authority is seeking reimbursement for.
Along with the request said, when we present these next months, we have all their invoices, so that we have everything from Cambridge and we know exactly what it is that they're billing for under task order number 4 that the town is being asked to reimburse for. So in other words, it's piecemeal right now. They said there's some others that you have, little ones, one's the 20,000 one. Let's get them all on the table. Let's get them all done at once.
Can I just ask that Cheryl, have you guys paid those other invoices? Or are you waiting to have the cash to pay those?
No, we paid them something.
Okay, so it is feasible to get them all at once at our next meeting because they are all paid.
Yes, sorry, yes.
For additional context, the next meeting is August 11th. So everyone has the date.
Okay, so less than a month.
So moved.
All right, you want a second? Okay, we'll have a roll call vote. Kathy Dowd,
Yes,
Avery New,
Yes.
Rhonda Smith,
Yes.
John Conley,
Yes.
Erwin.
Yes.
And the chair, or excuse me, vice chair votes yes. Okay, let's see, we'll have there are no further business.
Mhm.
Okay, we'll see you
Good check.
in August.
Vice Chair.
Yes.
I did have a question. It wasn't germane to paying these, but it was, I noticed that the rates that Cambridge Housing Authority changed with the calendar year. I'm just curious, is that the way most contracts are done, that they're not held to a set hourly rate per project that they bid on?
Are you asking me? Or,
Through the vice chair?
okay, so, under their contract, they have a right to adjust the rates once a year under the intergovernmental agreement, the master agreement. And I've been in consulting for 35 years. I've always tried to have that right as a consultant as well in a different area of human endeavor, because your costs do go up from year to year, and you usually try to negotiate, if they're the client, a cap on that, so it can go up as much as 5% or something like that, so. But yes, they have gone up. On the other hand, going back to the beginning, their rates were about 60% of the other rates that we got from the two other proposals received by development consulting. And so even though by ordinary person's point of view, it looks like a lot per hour, it's actually very competitive.
All right, so a motion to adjourn. I'll make that motion.
Second.
And second,
Can I ask? I was looking over the minutes from June 9th. Was there something deferred from that meeting to this meeting?
Yeah, I think there's other invoices for legal expenses, right?
I think that was, my understanding is that, is the housing authority gonna be presenting those again, or have those been withdrawn?
Neither answer, neither of those, do we know the answer to. So may I speak to that, Erwin's question?
Sure.
So yes, you're right. There's a small invoice for the law firm we hired to defend us in the town against a lawsuit. And after that meeting, and I wanted to report this to the committee, so this is new information you don't know about. We finally received a court date for the preliminary hearing, which was this Thursday from the Superior Court of Dedham, Massachusetts, which had not scheduled any ordinary matters for like 9 months because of the Karen Reed trial that paralyzed the Superior Court. And when we actually got that date,
But go ahead. The
That's
Karen
what-
Reed trial took place, but it didn't paralyze. the
that's
Superior Court.
when, that's, maybe I'm wrong, but that we certainly
You're
didn't,
wrong.
we certainly didn't get a date when our attorney said expected to happen, what happened. Now I'm just reporting, I don't know this of my own knowledge, I'm just telling you what I've been told by our attorney. That a lot of ordinary cases, minor cases were delayed. I'm told that. You are obviously much more expert than I am. So we said, let's not spend any more legal time on our basis, at even more hundreds of dollars an hour than Margaret Moran, trying to respond to the request for more information or, that, and incurring a response from the town council until we actually go to that date this Thursday, and we expect it be summarily dismissed, at which point it becomes a de minimis kind of an issue and not worth fighting over or debating. And then we found out on Friday that they postponed our case again to August. So that is the current status there. So, unless somebody wants us to do something different, we're just gonna wait until August to find out whether it's gonna be $1 million lawsuit or whether it's gonna be done and dusted at what we've spent up until now, which is about $15,000 or $16,000 of legal fees, which is not very many hours. And if that's okay, we're gonna just wait before we spend any more legal money
It's fine with us.
following up that issue.
Fine, that's good. All right, thanks for the update. All right, hand up, Kathy Dowd.
Yeah, I guess, Erwin, what I would add to that is that the committee was not comfortable voting to reimburse an expense that town council said was ineligible. And so since we didn't have an opinion saying that it was eligible at this meeting, it was not put on the agenda for this meeting. So, you know, I think we're waiting. If the town council tells us that this is an eligible expense, it can go back on the agenda. But if it is still deemed ineligible, nothing has changed, and there is, you know, it will have to stay in abeyance.
All right, so we have a vote now. It's a motion to adjourn. Kathy Dowd,
Yes.
okay, Avery Newton,
Yes.
Rhonda Spector.
Yes.
Tom Collins.
Yes.
Erwin,
Yes.
and, Vice Chair, votes yes. Okay, thanks.
Anybody want to spend